Hello, I'm Daniel Brint, and I'm going to talk about using stories in our teaching and secondary classrooms. The question I'd like to discuss is, why are stories so important? Stories are such a fundamental part of how we reflect on experience, make sense of what happens to us in our lives, make plans and form relationships, that using them in classes and inviting students to interact with them in their various forms is a great chance to create and communicate. And because stories are usually focused on people, the characters and protagonists who populate these texts, students can relate them to their own lives. A key difference between fiction and non-fiction is the degree and type of engagement. In recent years, we've come to understand how that works at a cognitive and emotional level, mainly thanks to our ability to study brain activity using sophisticated MRI scanning technology. Theory of mind is a term that usually describes the way we respond when reading fiction, and it highlights how empathy and understanding become possible because we have the sense of being in someone else's shoes, asking ourselves questions, making choices and decisions. It's actually possible to observe the empathy registering and parts of the brain becoming active as we read stories. Our brain effectively uses the same areas to signal lived experience and imagined experience. The implications of this are significant for teaching, as it means that stories are both drawing on a sense of narrative we know from our own lives and using that to place us inside other people's stories. This has many uses, not least of which is the creation of a safe space for exploring difficult issues and challenging assumptions. One example of this is a drama activity called Conscience Alley, where a character's dilemma is dramatized by creating two groups to come up with for and against ideas and then advise the protagonist as she walks down an alley made up of classmates who address her one by one as she moves along the line. For example, as a character faced by a decision of whether to be loyal to a friend or report a crime walks down the alley, students express their pre-prepared advice, alternating from side to side. You know your friend, she could never have done what they say. Then, if she's nothing to hide, she's nothing to worry about. By doing this activity, students are actively inhabiting the situation of the character and with a sense of agency, considering actions and their consequences. The preparation phase involves writing and discussion in groups. Allow about 20 minutes for this, and make sure each member of the groups has a different comment or piece of advice. Ideally, this should be memorized, but allow students to read from a paper if you think it's necessary. In the spoken phase, the drama activity gives students a chance to explore intonation and stress as a vehicle for communicating key ideas. Storytelling and hearing stories have been a central part of cultural life for centuries. And we are now perhaps seeing that disrupted by the dominance of social media, which is less of a narrative perhaps and more of a series of alerts. If we are losing the ability to tell ourselves stories, the consequent loss is our narrative of self. And this in turn produces emotional and psychological problems. Stories in the classroom can help redress this trend while offering a dynamic learning experience. The questions we ask become key to making this possible. When working with narratives, it's worth trying to get away from the typical comprehension questions that focus on what is said and redirect our inquiry to the why, to explore motivation, reasoning, responsibility, and justice. By readjusting the perspective from what is said to why it is said, the potential to interact with stories is greatly enhanced.